And Bitcoin jumping to yet another new record, this time above 121,000. It's actually almost 122,000 this morning.
Information and trading, information in the market, price action. What do we take away, do you think, from this week?
I guess this will never end. Welcome to the grand stage, the wild west of digital currency, where it's no holds barred. A degenerate fight to the death.
You heard what about fart too? Fart on that thing.
Logan Paul is absolutely and utterly a tool of the Matrix. He's a bought and sold individual with no soul.
And the ultimate goal is to get rich under any means necessary, no matter the cost, no matter the consequences.
Cattle who let TV do the thinking for them. But when people have holes in their pockets and nothing to eat, who's responsible for that?
Don't buy the Kanye money. Do anything but buy the Kanye money.
This is the world of crypto.
Crypto looking 500.
Crypto finally has a champion and an ally in the White House.
Here's a story about a fatherless bastard from the third world slums, trying to make an honest living from modest means. Although it sounds noble, every single day feels like hell. To numb myself, I spend most of my days fantasizing about what it would be like to be rich, as I trudge through my annoying dead-end job. After trying every single business model that I can think of and failed, after a while I was getting tired of the smoke and mirrors, and at the end of it, I was becoming desperate. I was starting to feel corrupted enough to do the unthinkable, to commit the internet's worst cardinal sin, to pull off a crypto rug pull. Crypto had started making waves on the internet again, so I felt like it would be the perfect time. But the only problem was I had no idea how to do it, or if I could even bear the weight of such horrifying consequences, and the screams and moans of thousands of people ringing through my ears for tearing apart their entire life savings. I started to research and study how the market structure looked like for hundreds of years, and all the people who took advantage of others by exploiting their greed and naivety. At the end of it, I found myself left with one question: will I be able to pull the trigger and be known as the internet's biggest degenerate? Let's find out. The Renaissance was a period of significant cultural and intellectual rebirth in Europe, bridging the Middle Ages to the modern era. And it's often the best place to trace where everything went wrong with our current problem. Let's segue into the first documented financial market bubble in human history and see what we can learn from our current market psychology that we tend to still ignore today. Everything all began with the Tulip mania. Imagine having to spend the equivalent of a luxury home for just a flower. This was the case in 1637. A single tulip flower was worth 10 times more when it came to the net worth of a skilled artisan. The reason why this flower was so valuable was because it was different from all the other flowers in Europe. Some may say it was because of its saturated petal color that was rare. Regardless, the appearance of the nonpareil tulip was a status symbol that coincides with the rise of what was called the newly independent Holland's trade fortunes. This would be the first recorded market bubble. This mania had nothing to do with the economic prosperity of the Dutch Republic, yet the tulip mania collapse is considered to be the most intense socio-economic crisis in human history. This incident would serve as a metaphor to refer to any large economic bubble when asset prices deviate from intrinsic value. In later years, 1716 to be specific, the French would replicate the same financial mistakes, but only this time, they didn't even need a supposed valuable asset like the tulip. The Mississippi Bubble was the result of the French starting a company named after the popular United States state. The purpose of the Mississippi Company was to create a national bank to issue out paper money, backed by the shares in a trading company that had exclusive rights to exploit France's Louisiana territory and develop its dominance in further territories in the US. the shares in the company were sold at inflated prices in exchange for national securities. And ironically, for some reason, this actually worked. But why had it come to this in the first place? Well, France was basically insolvent as a nation when King Louis XIV died in 1715. This was because of the large amount of debt it accumulated after the War of Spanish Succession. The French people turned to the Duke of Orleans, named John Law, to solve France's problems. And this was his solution. This concept worked well for a while. Very well, in fact. Each share that was sold for 500 lira ended up skyrocketing to 18,000 lira, which means that at its peak, the company was worth 80% of France's GDP. And today's estimated value, that company would have been worth $20 trillion. Which would measure up to the evaluation of most of the major companies in the United States combined. But why did it collapse? France's financial system relied on a metallic currency, but because of the state of the economy, the currency's value was uncertain and constantly fluctuating. By switching to paper, more money could be transferred, which meant that trade could speed up as the demand for the company shares started to rise and prices shot to the moon. And later, the Duke decided to merge the company with the bank to maintain control by printing more money. But the people wanted gold and silver when it came to profit and not paper money. And of course, the people caught on to the fact that there wasn't enough gold and silver for distribution, which led the share price to plummet, leading to hyperinflation, and its paper money rendered worthless, having the bubble finally burst in 1720, and the Duke, John Law, nowhere to be seen in the aftermath. These two events are necessary to talk about because they would lead to the financial culture that we know today as
Wall Street. Brutal day on
Today,
Wall
the
Street.
stock market lost $2 trillion in value. So you heard the president talk about the trillions that will be coming in today.
If we want America to thrive in the 21st century, then we must stop running from the competition. And instead, we must start totally winning and winning and winning again.
Wall Street is a financial district in Lower Manhattan, New York City. It runs 8 city blocks between Broadway in the west, South Street, and the East River in the east, which so happens to be the monument of the most popular stock exchange in the world, the New York Stock Exchange. There are many stock markets all over the world, but the New York Stock Exchange is the most reputable. It was founded in 1792 when 24 stockbrokers got together under a buttonwood tree in Wall Street. This arrangement would soon be known as the Bretton Woods Agreement, but now it trades on one of the largest stock exchanges in the world by market capitalization, exceeding $25 trillion in 2024. This is where you find long-timer companies like Walmart and IBM. It is owned by Intercontinental Exchange, which is classified as an American holding company. The New York Stock Exchange is accompanied by its cooler younger brother, the Nasdaq, which was founded in 1971. It is owned by the Nordic Stock Market Network. Unlike the New York Stock Exchange, it does not have a physical location. All of its trading happens online. This is where tech companies like Facebook and Apple are found. Both of these exchanges trade the most popular companies in America, and of course, indexes like the S&P 500, alongside the Dow Jones that made things easier by picking the best performing companies. But back then, it wasn't always like this. It was only big wealthy players like John D. Rockefeller and Andrew Carnegie who could play this game. In their time, these two dominated the market and didn't take any competition lightly. If you went up against them, they would figure out a way to get you out of business one way or the other. But thanks to what we call IPOs, companies that have great potential can go public and have all kinds of people show their support by buying their company stocks. This funding enables companies to grow to the heights of Rockefeller and Carnegie in an honest and fair game. That's why we now have companies like Apple, which was founded by Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, two tech enthusiasts who really didn't have an oligarch background. Their company had a fair and equal chance to participate in the stock market and be rewarded for its value to America and the world at large. Within the investing world, however, there are well-respected figures like Warren Buffett, who made their fortune by studying the market thoroughly. He used methods like value investing. In this case, he looks for companies that are trading at a discount to their intrinsic value, margin of safety. In this case, Buffett prioritizes investments that protect investors from losing money, and the last one being focused portfolio. Buffett keeps a small number of high-quality businesses and reinvests his profits into them. By practicing these three strategies, he managed to make billions from the stock market, but it took him a very long time, decades to be exact.
I would find something and
with $1 million, you could earn 50% a year. But you have to be in love with the subject. You can't just be in love with the money.
Of course, the stock market has always been a very long-term game, where you invest in companies that you're passionate about at the very least, or extremely knowledgeable about, which is a lot better. But not all Wall Street players have the kind of patience to become filthy rich the Warren Buffett way, so they dabble in the fast and risky lane.
You know, originally when Leo saw this project, I think he was, you know, he wanted to get it on screen. And he said this publicly because it represented the mistakes that I made and the attitude I had at that time represents a lot of what really went wrong ultimately many years later with Wall Street. And I think was important to him. And I think that what impressed Leo, I think, about my new life so much is he saw me really make this radical turn. And I think that moved him. And I was really proud and you know, shocked that he did that.
On the left corner, we have an infamous character called Jordan Belfort.
Gentlemen, welcome to Stratton Oakmont.
Belfort was born in 1962 in the Bronx, a borough of New York. His parents were both accountants. Belfort came from a stable home and would later graduate from the University of America with a degree in biology. Although his path to notable success was determined, he wasn't really satisfied as he found himself enrolled in the University of Maryland's School of Dentistry. This became a fact when the dean of the dental school gave a welcoming speech on the first day in which he said, "The golden age of dentistry is over. If you're here simply because you want to make a lot of money, you're in the wrong place." After this, Belfort subsequently decided not to attend the graduate program. After that, he drilled himself into Wall Street and got his first job as a trainee at L.F. Rothschild, where he was mentored by Mark Hanna, but he would soon be laid off after the company got hit by Black Monday. He would go from job to job in the broker business on Wall Street until he found his own firm with his best friend, Danny Porish. The company was called Stratton Oakmont. They started off as a boiler room that marketed penny stocks and defraud investors with pump and dump stock sales. In later years, the company grew so big that it ended up having 1,000 stockbrokers at its peak. But of course, this growth led to a lot of issues based on how they did it through dishonest means. For example, they had stock issues that totaled to $1 billion, including the initial public offering for a footwear company called Steve Madden. Because of its unconventional business practices, the company would be closely tailed by law enforcement for many years. And by 1996, the FIRA expelled the company, leaving Belfort later charged with securities fraud and money laundering. His sentence was reduced to 22 months after he ratted on all of his allies. And in the right corner, we have a NASDAQ legend called Bernie Madoff. Now this is where things get a lot darker. Bernard Lawrence Madoff was an American financial criminal and financer who was the admitted mastermind of the largest Ponzi scheme to date, which is estimated around $65 billion. Even though Bernie became corrupted beyond measure, just like all of us, Bernie started off as an innocent, naive kid. He was born on the 29th of April, 1938, in Brooklyn, New York, to Sylvia and Ralph Madoff. His father was a plumber and stockbroker. As Bernie got older, he attended the University of Alabama for just a year, and then he transferred to Hofstra University. In 1960, with a Bachelor of Arts degree in political science, he would later briefly attend law school, but would later invest all of his time in his newfound company, Bernie Earl Madoff Investment Securities. And just like Jordan Belfort, he started off as a broker-dealer for penny stocks at his own company. He got the initial investment to start by his father-in-law, Sol Apern. He gave him a grand total of $50,000. He grew the company with the help of his family, which included his brother, his niece, and his 2 sons.
I can't do this. I'm your son. Dad, how could you do this?
I'm gonna set you guys up. Yeah. It's all gonna be okay. There's still a few $100 million left. I'm gonna make sure that you guys are all taken care of.
He would later sit as chairman until his sentence, but before that, the firm would peak as the 6th largest market maker in S&P 500 stocks. Because of how information technology was evolving around this time, his firm would help when it came to the development of the NASDAQ. The man who was once a naive penny stockbroker was now a Wall Street mogul with a billion-dollar empire, although it took decades to build. But just like most companies that commit fraud, the brokerage part of the business had a public profile profile. However, he kept his asset management business as low profile as possible. This would be under his securities company that he initially started. Murdoch's business practice was accused of many things by the SEC, which included submitting false trading reports. He was also accused for affinity fraud by targeting American Jewish communities by using his in-group status to obtain investments from Jewish individuals and not compensating for them. With all this in mind, Murdoch has been scamming investors for decades. Proof of this can be calibrated from early reports that came from the 70s, but all this came to a close when he was ratted out to the authorities by his kids, who would be found dead in later years. Bernie Murdoch was accused of losing $18 billion of investor money, among other things, and would later be sentenced to 150 years in prison. And on the 14th of April in the year 2021, he would pass away from chronic kidney disease. Who would have thought that these two figures would set the center stage for what was about to happen in the mass scam-infested crypto world that we know today?
No one likes getting nabbed for a traffic ticket, but one website is pitching a way to keep the police at bay, sort of. It's a website that meshes with your local municipality, allowing you to pay everything from tickets to taxes virtually.
Another important event that is necessary to the story is the dot-com bubble. In the early 90s, America had an internet frenzy. The dot-com bubble was a stock market phenomenon that ballooned during this time. This period of market growth coincided with the widespread adoption of the World Wide Web and the internet as a whole, resulting in the dispensation of available venture capital and the rapid growth of valuations in new dot-com startups. Between 1995 and its peak in March 2000, investment in the Nasdaq Composite Stock Market Index rose by 800%. Historically, the dot-com bubble can be seen as similar to a number of other technology-inspired booms in the past. To name a few, automobiles in the early 20th century, and many others I won't go into. The 1993 release of Mosaic and subsequent web browsers during the following years gave computer users access to the World Wide Web, popularizing the use of the internet. Internet use increased as a result of the reduction of the digital divide and advances in connectivity. Uses of the internet in computer education. Between 1990 and 1997, the percentage of households in the United States owning computers increased from 15 to 35%, as computer ownership progressed from a luxury to a necessity. This marked the shift to the information age, an economy based on information technology, and many new companies were founded. At the same time, a decline in interest rates increased the availability in capital. The Taxpayer Relief Act of 1997 lowered the top marginal capital gains tax in the United States. This also made people more willing to make more speculative investments. Alan Greenspan, then chair of the Federal Reserve, allegedly fueled investments in the stock market by putting a positive spin on stock evaluations.
I'm proud of what I did. And I'm acutely aware of the mistakes that I made. And I said, could I have done otherwise? I said, no.
And the Telecommunications Act of 1996 was expected to result in many new technologies, from which many new people wanted to profit. As a result of these factors, many investors were eager to invest at any valuation in any dot-com company, especially if it had one of the internet's related prefixes or a .com in its name. With just this, venture capital was easy to raise. Investment banks, which profited significantly from initial public offerings, this fueled speculation and investment in technology. A combination of rapidly increasing stock prices, the quaternary sector of the economy had confidence that the companies would turn future profits. This created an environment in which many investors were willing to overlook traditional metrics, such as the price-earnings ratio, and based confidence in technological advancements.
No one had ever seen a computer. To the extent that they'd seen them in movies, and there were these big boxes with whirring, for some reason they fixated on the tape drives as being the icon of what the computer was, or flashing lights somehow.
Between 1995 and 2000, the Nasdaq Composite stock market rose by 400%. It reached a price-earnings ratio of 200, dwarfing the peak price-earnings ratio. I don't want to get too deep into it, but because of all this mess, more stocks fell in value than rose in value, as investors sold stocks in slower-growing companies like Amazon to invest in random internet stocks.
That whole period is very interesting because the stock is not the company, and the company is not the stock. And so as I watched the stock fall from 113 to 6, I was also watching all of our internal business metrics, number of customers, profit per unit, everything you can imagine, defects, etc. Every single thing about the business was getting better and fast.
An unprecedented amount of personal investing occurred during the boom, and stories of people quitting their jobs to trade on the financial market started to take place. The news media took advantage of the public's desire to invest in the stock market. An article in the Wall Street Journal suggested that investors rethink the quaint idea of profits, and CNBC reported on the stock market with the same level of suspense at the height of the boom. However, it was possible for a promising .com company to become public via an IPO and raise a substantial amount of money, even if it had never made a profit, or in some cases not having made any material revenue, or not even having a finished product. People who received employee stock options became instant paper millionaires when their companies executed IPOs. However, most employees were barred from selling shares immediately due to lockup periods. The most successful entrepreneurs, such as Mark Cuban, sold their shares or entered it into hedges to protect their gains. Sir John Templeton successfully shorted many .com stocks at the peak of the bubble during what he called temporary insanity, or in a better term, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. He shorted stocks just before the expiration of lockup periods ending 6 months after initial public offerings, correctly anticipating many .com company executives would sell shares as soon as possible, and that large-scale selling would force down share prices, and that's how he decimated everyone.
This is going to be the biggest bull run in crypto history. And if you're here to get those giant X's, you want to make a lot of profit from this, you barely have time.
Let's fast forward 20 years later. Apart from Bitcoin, 2015 would be the most important moment that would happen in the crypto space in history, and that would be the birth of the Ethereum network. The mastermind and visionary behind it is Vitalik Buterin, but before he earned those seemingly prestigious titles, he was just an average-looking teenage computer programmer who loved League of Legends. This was before his father introduced Bitcoin to him, and from that point on, his fascination brought forth a vision to reshape digital finance and society altogether. By studying blockchain and border applications, he started sharing what he knew about crypto blogs, and would later form Bitcoin magazine. But the more he studied Bitcoin, the more he started to realize its flaws. For example, its flexibility, its scaling issues, how slow it really is when it came to transactions, but most importantly, its failure to facilitate other applications. With that in mind, Vitalik started to work on a new technology, one that is more versatile, one that could execute code, and enable all kinds of developers to form their decentralized applications. In late 2013, Vitalik would let the world know that this invention was ready by publishing a white paper under the name Ethereum. Ethereum's mission was plain and simple. It stood for anyone to have the ability to create a decentralized network of applications without the need for a central authority, like the government or any other third-party intermediaries. This would be done by blockchain, with its programming language called Solidity. It enables the creation of diverse applications, from financial services to games, all powered by Ethereum. Despite facing a lot of criticism and mixed feelings in the beginning, this technology became an internet sensation because of how it gave people the freedom and the ability to execute code globally without any lag, downtime, censorship, or interface. And by 2014, Vitalik and a set of other founders would set up a crowdfund that would amount to 18 million when Ethereum launched in 2015, and the rest became history. But like all great inventions, there's always a stain, a virus beneath its heel.
NFT stands for digital money used to be more expensive than your house.
Is Pokemon getting into NFTs? It looks like they may just be.
Looking at it 10 years later from 2015, the crypto space has been swarming with fallacies, degeneracy, and a bunch of get-rich-quick schemes. This became the status quo. The sad part about it is how it's just normal now. This explosion, one that is far greater than the dot-com bubble, would set the center stage of modern-day finance.
For online content creators, the unavoidable subject of 2021 has been NFTs, from incredibly cringeworthy ape profile pics to incomprehensibly tasteless tributes to deceased celebrities to six-figure sales of the original copy of a meme. It is the thing that is currently dominating the collective brain space of digital artists and sucking up all the oxygen in the room.
I wanted to understand how it came to this point, how such an inspiring story like Vitalik's would be overshadowed by mass derision and rapid degenerate scamming. The more I look into this, this, I realized that the first big problem in this swirling mess are influencers. There's a powerful psychological persuasion that comes from people of influence, and one of them is social proof. Think about it, influencers can get away with almost anything because they have a massive amount of followers who almost hang on their every word. This means that they can promote a low quality product and have minimal consequences. Most people tend to have an unhealthy parasocial relationship with these figures of influence. In terms of crypto, it went from popular influencers in the space to clueless celebrities.
So I was going through a lot of them and I was like, I want something that like kind of reminds me of me, but this one, it does.
Billionaire entrepreneurs.
People should not invest their life savings in cryptocurrency.
And now it's even gotten to presidents. Think about how weird it is for a president to be promoting a meme coin. The bar has sunk really low, and it will probably become even worse, given how we now have meme coin millionaires who are coming out the gate at the age of 17.
Alright, we just flew all the way to LA to see a day in the life of a meme coin millionaire.
All this made me believe that decentralized finance is nothing more than the Wild West. But let's dissect the problem even further to see all the layers. Because of Ethereum's technology, people started to print crypto coins like paper money. The blockchain ecosystem detects about 15 scam coins per hour as of this date because people had an ambition or mockery to make the next Bitcoin. And nobody wants to miss out on something that was once worthless and ended up rising to 100,000 per coin in market value at its peak. Because of fear, people ate it all up and still do, no matter how stupid some of these blockchain-based projects are. Alright, so let's start with how all of this is constructed. It starts with drafting a marketing strategy or a proposal to a blockchain-based project, like an NFT, a crypto token, or a meme coin. The second step is to create the project, either through Ethereum's code or Binance smart contract blockchain. After that's done, you draft a white paper of how the project works. If you're good at coding, you could do it yourself, but it would be better for a developer to help you to enlist it, to ensure its security and integrity is intact. That's absolutely critical, because in this so-called digital Wild West, when you launch the project, you have to make sure that the initial supply of tokens is readily available for buyers who are ready to invest.
So in today's video, I'm going to show you exactly what it takes to make $1 million meme coin project.
The next step is to list it on a cryptocurrency exchange, multiple ones if possible, especially those that can provide liquidity and visibility. But without building a definitive community, the whole process is pointless. This is where marketing comes in. You have to create a dedicated website, have an active social media, and interact with people in crypto communities or conventions. The more popular or world famous you are, the better. It's time for distribution. Now, when everything is all set, on this part, a well thought out strategy comes into play. This might involve airdrops or pre-sales. At this point in time, the owner usually owns most of the coins and starts to inflate the price by making grandiose claims.
For the last 6 months, I've been working on my own NFT project that I believe is going to change the game.
Use their influence to inflate its value, use celebrities to market it.
They look like they could be friends.
They're buddies.
For them to inflate the price even more, and celebrating that it's going to the moon. Then bam, it's all over. The rug pull has been completed. And the victims of the scam left devastated.
I lost $25,000.
$120,000.
$500,000 Australian, which is $500,000 in CryptoZoo.
Shut up! No, you haven't.
Yeah, 500K.
Oh no.
In general, a rug pull can be categorized into two themes: a hard rug pull and a soft rug pull. A hard rug pull, mostly known as a pump and dump, is when the project team doesn't intend to finish the project from the jump. They do it to launch an ICO to scam investors. A popular example of this are the ones that popular internet personality Andrew Tate does. But since he has been honest and unapologetic about it, it's pretty hard to determine whether he's a scammer or someone who just likes to ridicule and troll his naive audience. A better example is the Squid Game rug pull. Based on the popular live action that gained its peak popularity in 2021, the coin offered obsessed gamers access to a play-to-earn game. The white paper made a lot of huge claims and promises to its investors. Around November of that year, the coin gained immense attention and witnessed a meteoric rise in its price, having a single token trading $2,861 per coin. This, of course, enticed potential investors, so the creators took advantage of this by marketing the coin as a revolutionary exploratory opportunity for investors to participate in an upcoming fan-made online game inspired by the Squid Game franchise, in which the participants compete in the game for money. To fully orchestrate this scam, the creators would promise rewards if the participants would buy the token that they promised would be released in the upcoming game. Not only that, but the coin was exchangeable with other cryptocurrencies, which further fueled the excitement for the coin, leaving it to skyrocket even more. However, there was growing concerns about this so-called Squid coin, as investors later found out that they could not sell their tokens. This puncture raised a lot of doubt in their entire project. With little to no time, the coin's value plummeted to zero, leaving investors with worthless tokens, as it became apparent that the developers had crashed out all their holdings, insipidly draining liquidity from the exchange. When everyone discovered that the whole thing was a scam, investors were left with substantial losses, while the developers vanished from the public eye, having taken an estimate of over 3 million, with all social accounts deactivated and its webpage shut down. It's like none of it ever happened. And then we have a soft rug pull. This is when the initiator does not have developer knowledge, so they rely on marketing hype to pump up the price, and then put the project on hold or shut it down, while behind the scenes cashing out the money. An example of this is the one that the Hawk Tour girl was accused of by CoffeeZilla after a street interview in Malaysia.
Hawk Tour and spit on that thing, you get me?
Haley Welch became an internet sensation overnight. This catchphrase would go viral, and she would gain millions of followers within a week. And of course, Haley would capitalize on it as much as she could. She made numerous media appearances, featured in national talk shows, and gave interviews to major publications and big YouTube channels. She would start several business ventures, from merch to dating apps. And of course, her podcast, where she'd be able to connect with her audience, was enough to launch her most infamous idea yet. Its name would be Hawk Coin. She proclaimed that Hawk Coin was a way to connect with her community and empower them financially. Only crypto experts and longtime fans would criticize this move, but everyone else bought into it because they trusted her. That's because Haley is very likable and relatable.
This isn't necessarily my thing, but you're in an interesting position right now, and I feel like it's my duty to come on here and talk to you. You seem like a sweet enough girl.
And she made a lot of promises to her fans that this project had a noble cause, like creating a decentralized ecosystem and exclusive NFTs to leverage to her followers' benefit. But in reality, the project white paper was very evasive and lacked critical detail, and only focused on the hype, and that's where the alarm bells started ringing.
This is the question with all this like fake money stuff. This is why it's so confusing. If you have these meme coins and people are genuinely making millions of dollars from real meme coins, but it's kind of bullshit.
Despite that, as the project launched, it was a massive success, hitting 500 million in market value for at least a total of 180 minutes. After all that, it was all pennies. Moments later, social media would explode with stories of instant crypto multimillionaires. Unfortunately, that wasn't the same for everyone.
And as of now, a lot of people want Haley to be thrown in jail.
99% of investors suffered extravagant losses, with some of them losing their life savings. That circled around $1.4 million. It was later detected that large wallets from pre-sale investors were cashing out as soon as it launched, and sooner than later it became apparent to most people that this was a rug pull. Of course, none of this would have been publicly rendered as such if CoffeeZilla didn't pull up to the case.
Happy to answer any I have questions. I have questions. I'm raising my hand. Hey guys.
What CoffeeZilla?
Hey, this is one of the most miserable, horrible launches I've ever seen in my life.
Okay, then why the fuck are you on?
As expected, due to his revelations, this whole fiasco left many people on the internet shocked, leaving the majority of people, especially her fans, left in awe.
Wicked people who invested said, Hawk Tour, mama. She said, huh? He said, huh? All my money is gone, huh? She said, damn, that's tough. That's just the way life goes.
The people that participated in this coin were very angry and they demanded answers, while Haley and her team maintained their silence about the whole issue, until they later came up with the controversial explanation that nobody bought into, still leaving her under investigation last time I checked.
It's been nearly 3 weeks since our world was flipped upside down in the wake of the catastrophic Hawk Tour coin crypto scam from Haley Welch and her team of worms. We put our faith into the most trusted person we knew, Hawk Tour Girl, to deliver a crypto that could replace the US dollar. And what happened next, no one could have seen coming.
Hey guys, it's finally time that we get into the meme coin disaster and address everything that's going on, and we can finally tell our truth about it as we know it, and I finally get to tell my side of the story that I've been holding on to. After reading all the comments and everything people have been saying about it, I thought it would be best if I just sat here and addressed it myself.
And now for the grand finale. In case you haven't noticed, all of these rug pulls happen on an exchange. And the exchange that pulled off the biggest rug pull of all time is FTX. After Sam Bankman-Fried had apologized to whoever was willing to listen over his massive screw-up, claiming that he wasn't really responsible, the SEC and Commodity Futures Trading Commission regulators, alongside federal prosecutors from the United States Attorney's Office from the Southern District of New York, say a different story. They say that he was at the heart of the whole plot, pulling all the strings like a puppet master. He was indeed behind one of the biggest financial fraud in American history. But before it all exploded, let's start from the beginning. Sam had originally been a founder of a crypto hedge fund called Alameda Research. This was originally an arbitrage shop that would purchase Bitcoin from Asian trading firms and sell it at a higher price to Western markets. Sam and his friend Gary Wang would make a lot of money from this. In fact, it would work so well that they would start a cryptocurrency exchange called FTX.com with a UC Berkeley graduate called Nashad in April 2019.
In the end, it's the mark that we actually leave on the world, not the mark we're perceived to leave on the world that matters.
FTX offered its customers innovative trading features, a responsive platform, and a reliable experience. All this happened in just 3 years. What was funny though was that Sam's company ended up being a multi-billion-dollar company that did not have a board of directors, just a legion of 20-something-year-old in-group of insiders. It grew to about 20 billion in trading volume and about 32 billion in market evaluation. But the problem was that Sam was using customer money and assets from his hedge fund Alameda Research to move them around and make trades on his new trading exchange, FTX. According to the CFTC, it cited reports from 2019 that state that FTX used $100 million a day of customer money illegally that came from Alameda. FTX even made more money by opening its own token called FTT that would peak at $84 per coin. After that, FTX would rein in on celebrities and go insane on its marketing.
Like I was saying, it's FTX. It's a safe and easy way to get into crypto.
I don't think so. Having its logo appearing everywhere, within short notice, with its only competitor being Binance, and Sam himself being deemed the Lord and Savior of crypto.
He spent hundreds of millions of dollars to bail out struggling companies facing bankruptcy, liquidity issues, you name it. He was once hailed as the king of crypto. But today, Sam Bankman-Fried, founder and former CEO of crypto exchange FTX, is facing criminal indictments and a wave of civil complaints.
Before its fall, FTX held $15 billion worth of assets, while accounting for 10% of global digital transaction volume. In the end of it all, Sam was backstabbed by his competitor CZ from Binance, who held the majority of FTT tokens, but sold them all at once without warning, while getting ratted on and betrayed by his girlfriend, who ran all of his companies as his CEO, leaving the ghost of his customers' money that piled to billions of dollars withering under the rug of a very complicated rug pull, as Sam awaited trial that would land him in prison for 150 years. With all this induced $100 billion fraudulent trauma, it may seem like there is no hope. With a community plagued with meme coins, NFTs, and a bunch of garbage, it's very easy to discredit crypto as a joke.
And the other thing I've always made of Bitcoin, governments, and this is not a technological statement, governments are going to crush it one day.
Something not to be taken seriously, a cataclysmic haven for anonymous degenerates. And if that's your opinion, you may be right. Well, almost. There are still entrepreneurs who believe in blockchain technology wholeheartedly. An indication of this is the Pi Network project. Before I start this off, this is not me endorsing or promoting this project. This is just simple journalism. Pi Network is a team effort of developers that wants to solve cryptocurrency's biggest problem, accessibility. Bitcoin's technology is complex and rigid, and also requires a lot of energy for mining. While its transactions are slow, and its amount being limited to 21 million coins, Pi aims to make mining its coin so easy you can do it on your phone. Of course, it sounded like another fad when I heard about it, So I wrote it off when it came out in 2019, but as the years went by, their devotion impressed me because 6 years later, it ended up with 60 million global users, and their goals became a lot bigger, like focusing on ecosystem applications and utility. They even focused on creating their consumer-focused Startup Inflection AI chatbot that has about over 1 million active daily users, with all this being spearheaded by Dr. Nicholas Kokalis, a Greek computer scientist and entrepreneur, but well known for being the head of technology when it comes to the Pi Network project, and at his side, his wife, Dr. Chang Deo Fan, an anthropological scientist who is better known as the head of product. The Pi Network founders knew they had to integrate both theory and practice, applying what they learned in their Stanford doctorates in computer and social sciences to a real-world environment. After identifying key barriers to crypto accessibility and adoption, the Pi founders set out to build the next generation of web integration with blockchain. Among other crypto-based projects, they appear to me as experts who have been open, transparent, and public about their community's activities for many years. All their ups and downs, their highs and lows, all there for everyone to witness. There was even a point where their project was rendered a failure for many years, and probably still is. But in February 2025, they finally launched their token that started trading at less than $2, which is a reasonable start for an authentic project. Unlike most crypto releases, there was no crazy marketing. The coin did not crash in 5 minutes, with the developers ghosting people. They spent 6 years building their community. There was a verification process that you had to go through in order to be able to participate in the project. The users who claim to have gone through this process received their tokens after mining for many years. Another thing that I've noticed that stands out is how concrete their white paper is. You can see how much time was taken into this by measuring the level of detail that was taken into it, as compared to a meme coin. However, there is no guarantee that this project would turn out to be a success, but there is no denying their level of commitment and the hard work they put into this project. Like the dot-com bubble, among the sea of lies, there remains a stronghold of cryptocurrencies that many have predicted to have failed by now, that still linger above the sea. Why have they survived, you may ask? Maybe it's because the main theme behind their existence was to solve a real-world problem. For example, Bitcoin itself is considered a digital equivalent of gold that determines all the cryptocurrencies underneath it in value. Ethereum is used to create other cryptocurrencies and to develop decentralized finance applications. Tether is used as a store of value and is measured as the equivalent to the US dollar in cryptocurrency. XRP is primarily used as a bridge currency for facilitating faster, more affordable cross-border payments and as a digital asset for investment and trading, while leveraging the XRP ledger's speed and efficiency. None of these projects had any insane marketing or mass promotion when they first came out. Its value spoke for itself for many years. That's why they still exist today. And I think that should be the most important thing to look at for those who are interested in investing their money into this world. But again, this is not financial advice, so be sure to do your own research. What's quite interesting is how the government is now getting involved into the development and utilization of cryptocurrency. This was made clear when President Donald Trump signed an executive order that established the Strategic Bitcoin Reserve and the US Digital Asset Stockpile, positioning the United States as a leader among nations in government digital asset strategy. The order creates a Strategic Bitcoin Reserve that would treat Bitcoin as a reserve asset. With all this coming to light, it all brings me back to Vitalik Buterin's vision. Maybe it just wasn't smoke and mirrors after all. Maybe cryptocurrency and blockchain technology could still be left standing despite an uncertain future. But in order for the idea of cryptocurrency to survive, we should look at them as we once did, a response to a financial system that failed to value our currency for hundreds of years. Something that gives liberty and optionality to its consumers when it comes to currency, rather than a get-rich-quick scheme that lures in the naive and the desperate. Maybe it starts with improving its system, rather than contributing to its chaos.